All right, so in this video, we're going to do this cool reveal effect, as you see right there. As the car passes by, we're getting that nice text reveal. And in this case, we do have the text behind her, but you don't have to do that part if you don't want to. All right, so we're gonna do this two different ways. First in the color page, and then in Fusion. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. We're gonna start completely fresh. Let's go ahead and grab our clip right here, throw it down in the timeline wherever you want. We're gonna do the color page method first. So we have to set this up, all right? So we're gonna select our clip, okay? Now hold down Alt and make a copy, just drag it straight up. And there we have that right there. And then drag it up one more layer. So we have a space in between here. Head over to your effects library, titles, and you can use your text plus tool if you prefer. We're just going to do it pretty simple for right now. Now I'm going to select that first clip here, and we can't see our text right now. So let's go ahead and just turn off that top layer, select our text layer, inspector, and then go ahead and type in whatever you want. I'm going to type in lost because she's in the woods, and I'm going to press O to sort this list. And change this to some other font. Open Sans looks cool. And we'll make it bold and then pull it up. Now I need to see where this car comes through and make sure that it's covered by the car because that looks pretty good. So we can go ahead and stylize our text however we want. Maybe put a bit of a drop shadow on it. If you want to put a stroke around it, of course, any color that you want, you can do that as well. But we're going to keep this pretty simple. That looks okay for what we want. I'm going to come over here to video now and squeeze this down because I want some sort of animation just coming out. Just very, very simple, right? So then I'll come to the very beginning of my clip and I'm just going to keyframe right here on the video, then come down to the very end. I'm going to pull this up and now we have some simple animation to that coming up, as you can see. All right. Now we can turn on our top clip. There, go ahead and select it and head over to color. All right. So once we're in color, we need to select our power window. And what we want is our pen tool or polygon tool, whatever you prefer to call it. All right. So what we're going to do is go ahead and trace around the car. So bring our playhead up to the car and we're going to start maybe about here. So, all right. So I can, again, scroll in, scroll out just with the, mouse wheel, press down on the mouse wheel to move things around. All right, so let's go ahead and mask this out just by clicking. And you can, of course, click and hold if you need to make like a curve or something like that, as we've already discussed several times. Now, I don't have to be very, exact with this mask here. I basically just need a square that's going to mask out the text. So I'm not being very particular at all here. And pull it around and connect it. So now we need to create an alpha output. So right click, add alpha output. You see this blue dot, connect your blue square with your blue dot and boom, all of a sudden you see that text coming through. So now you probably know what we need to do, right? We need to animate this mask to follow along with the car. Now there's a couple ways we can do this. We're actually going to do it the easy way because why not do it the easy way, right? But you can come over here to your keyframes and expand this thing that says corrector and find my power curve. Go ahead and keyframe that. Let me come over here first and make sure we keyframe right here. Okay, so that's about where we want it. Let's just say, you can always move it. Now I'm going to take my playhead out. You can use your arrow keys as well. So right here, and let me go one frame here. Actually, let me just move this a little bit here so it stays right there. Then I'll go one frame forward. In this case, one frame forward. You don't always have to keyframe every single frame and then move it forward. So now you can see that mask is going to animate, as you can see. Okay, so you can do it over here in your keyframes. We're not going to do it this way. So let me just grab those and get rid of those. And then our mask is going to stay stable. All right, so we don't need the keyframes over here. Let's head over here to the tracker instead and make sure you come over here to frame. Now let's move our playhead wherever we need it, which let's say right here, we're on frame. I'm going to lock down that keyframe right there. You see it created for me. I'm going to go back one frame because we have to move the mask, right? And then just simply move the mask so it covers up the text. All right. So go forward, There we go. Now we have a nice reveal. Now, in this case of this shot, I really have to keyframe basically every frame. I could go forward 1, 2, 3 frames and then pull my mask over like that and just see how that interpolates. It's okay, but you can see we're actually missing some of these here. So I just want to point that out, that you don't always have to keyframe every single frame. If you have constant motion, you might be able to get by with keyframing every other frame, every 10 frames, every 20, every 30, so on and so forth. Just sort of try out, say, maybe your beginning frame and then your ending frame and see how that interpolates. And then you can always adjust your mask as you need to. Okay. So go forward a frame. It's not bad. It's not bad, but it's not as tight as it could be. And I can even adjust here if I need to. So I just want to make sure that we're seeing what we're supposed to see and not seeing what we're not supposed to see. So all this here is fine for now because there's no text up there anyway. Let's go forward another frame. And it's not too bad here. Right here needs to be fixed a little bit. All right. That's really all there is to it. So one more keyframe or one more frame and it moves pretty well. Then one more frame. I'm just going to grab this and pull it off of the screen. Okay, so guess what? We are done. That's it. That's all there is to it. Head back over here into edit. And now we can see our full composition. Let me pull these video tracks down a bit. Press P for full screen and play back, and boom, an awesome reveal. And we can check that just using my, arrow keys. Now it is a bit stark, so we can soften up that mask if we want, so it doesn't look like there's a mask on it basically. So you can always head back into color here, and we can come to our power window, and that's selected. And let me zoom in so you can see this, and we can soften this up. So however much you want to do it, it's up to you. Okay, you might want to over soften and then maybe change the outside of it. It really just depends on what you want to do. You can see what happens there, all right? So just so we don't have like a sharp line, I'm just going to soften it up a little bit. Okay, and guess what? Again, that is it. It's really that easy over here in the color page. So check it out one more time. Boom, that looks really cool. And we're getting that nice reveal. That is awesome. All right, pretty cool. So let's go ahead and do the same exact thing over in Fusion. And by the way, if you ever want to check out these sections again, look down at your progress bar on YouTube, and you should see different sections or different chapters of what they're called now that you can easily navigate between. All right, so grab our clip. We're going to start fresh and just drop it into your timeline wherever you need it to be. Okay. Select it. I'm over top of it. Then all we need to do, we don't need to duplicate anything in this case. Let's just head straight over to Fusion. All right, so let's go ahead and drag these sort of out of the way a bit. And I'm gonna first select this node right here, which is a merge node. I can pull it in, or I can just click it and have one. Delete that. Go ahead and make sure I connect my media one in here. Disconnect that and connect it right over to the media out. Okay. So these little dots down here correspond to the viewer that you're seeing this on. So you can see, your media one node over here. You can see the media out node over here. Turn it off or whatever you want to do. Just for those, who don't know. So now we need a text tool. I'll just grab it right here. Just drag it right in and go ahead and connect it right there. So here's our text tool over here in the inspector. Let's go ahead and do the same thing. We'll say lost. Now this is the text plus tool. We could also do 3D text back here if we wanted to. We're going to do basically the same thing. We drag that up, pull my playhead forward, just make sure it's covered here by the car. And it is. I'm going to pull it up a little bit bigger. That should be okay for what we want. Actually about there. And then you can go ahead and stylize this however you want. So I could come over here and maybe give myself a cool gradient, and then have a black down here, and then maybe up here for the white, change that, pick my screen color, and maybe this nice green of the tree there. That's kind of cool. Let's give it some softness. Make sure we apply it to the fill color. You can see what happens there. Looks kind of cool. Of course, stylize this up however you want. Put a bit of glow on there if we need to. Might want to change these colors a bit like that. And then head over here to number 2, enable it. That's our outline by default. and make it black or maybe white. Let's just say black and maybe make it a little bit bigger. Come back here, go to 3, enable that. By default, it's our drop shadow. So you can see that drop shadow there now. And of course, set things up however you want here. So that looks good enough for what we want. Okay. So now let's go ahead and draw our mask the same way we did in the color page. Okay. So in order to do that, we're going to need to use either a polygon or maybe a B-spline. It doesn't really matter which one you use in this case. I'm going to grab my text layer and then click this polygon right here or the B-spline, just polygon. That will automatically connect it. Now we can't see our text now because that polygon doesn't have a mask drawn yet. We can always invert that if you just want to see that. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to disconnect this for now. Make sure I select my polygon and go ahead and draw in my shape. Now over here in Fusion, I have to hold down Control and then scroll in order to scroll in here. All right, so we're going to do the same thing. Let's switch over to just the single viewer because we don't need both of them in this case. So let's go ahead and click and then click and then click and then click, just like we did previously. And we're just going to draw our mask around this here. Zoom in as much as you need to, and you can always fix it later on. Right now, in this case, the text is going to be down here. So I'm just going to come straight across there and straight across here. I'm going to zoom out and then just come, say, straight down here and then go ahead and connect it. All right, so that's really all there is to it. Right here. Now we can go ahead and connect this polygon again to our text. There we go. And now we can see the text there. So what we need to do, select our polygon again. Let's get a little more room here so we can see a little better what we're doing up here. So as I move this mask, you can see it makes the text disappear. Not exactly what we want. Let's go ahead and invert that. And now whenever we move the mask, the text appears. So let's go ahead and make sure our mask is properly placed on the car. And then come over here and go ahead and keyframe your center XY. Okay. Just go ahead and keyframe that one. And then go ahead and go forward a frame or backwards a frame or forward or backwards 10 frames, whatever, however often you need to keyframe. I'm going to go back 1 frame because I need to move this mask back here. Okay. Just move it like that. Now go forward a frame. Okay. Go forward another frame. In this case, maybe 2 or 10, whatever, your video needs, and just make sure that this mask is right on the car. Go ahead and make any adjustments that I need to as I go. And this is fine down here since there's actually no text down there. But if you had text down there or up here, you would need to go ahead and adjust that. We're good. Let's go forward another frame. In this case, grab our mask again, pull it forward, make sure it's tight on the car and it looks good. And you can see down here on the Fusion timeline, these little white lines, those are our keyframes. Okay. Go forward another frame. Gonna zoom out just a bit and go ahead and grab this here and pull it over, and 1 more frame and just pull it out. Okay. So now we have our animation. Boom, 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 boom. Looks good. One thing I might want to do is come back to my text here, and let's go ahead and come over here, and I might just animate this size a little bit. So we'll start it. Let me just take this polygon off for now. Start it here, keyframe that. I'm going to go forward, say to the end of the clip or about here or so, and then just take the size up a bit. Okay, so now we have some animation for that text there. Go ahead and connect our polygon again. There we go. And then go through and just make sure everything is looking good. So there we go. We did the same thing over here in Fusion. Head back to the edit page. Now, since this is a Fusion clip, it might need to render. You see this red line. Always come up here, playback, render cache, and turn this on to user or to smart, and that will render your clip for you. So if we play this through, come back a few frames here and check it frame by frame. So it's pretty good. except we have sort of the same problem of it. It looks really stark with that, that mask, just like a straight line. Again, not a problem. Let's head back into Fusion. There's our clip back over here into Fusion, and we're going to add some blur here to this polygon. I'm just going to disconnect that, grab my blur right here, just drop this in here and connect it like so. Boom and boom. Now we have a bit of blur. Let me just control click up here, select my blur node and change the blur size. So however much you want, that's pretty good. Just so it's not like a straight line, right? Just a bit in this case. There we go. So now we have done essentially the same thing, although a little more, a little more advanced, and boom, there it is. So of course that's still rendering here, but try it one more time. Boom, looks really cool. And another thing you can do if you have that harsh line, which I probably should mention, instead of using the blur node, you could come back here, of course, to Fusion, grab your polygon, and instead of adding a blur, you can just use your filter up here. So we have a fast Gaussian, a box Gaussian here, whatever you want, and then just dial up your soft edge up here, and that will soften it directly instead of having to use a blur node. Just use, whatever you prefer. You can also change the border width right here as well. So I can pull that border width out a bit here and then take up maybe the soft edge a bit. And we can do that instead of using a blur. And then you can see this reveal here as it slides out, which is pretty cool as well. But there, at least you have a couple of options of how you want to connect things here in Fusion. All right, now, just as an extra, what if I wanted to put this text behind her? Well, we can do that too. We don't need to duplicate clips or anything like that. Let's just head back to a Fusion and we're going to draw another mask. All right, back in here to Fusion. And then let's come up here to our media pool. And we're going to grab the same exact clip here and just drag it in right there. Close that down so we don't see it. All right. Now, what we need to do is mask her out using this media 2 input because it's the same exact clip as you remember. So show that in viewer 1. It's the same exact clip. So what we can do is go ahead and grab our polygon tool and just bring it in here. I'm going to put this underneath so it makes maybe a little more sense. And just go ahead and connect our polygon tool into the media in 2. We can rename this if we wanted to. And then we need to connect our media in 2 into our merge node into this input right here, which is called the effect mask. So go ahead and connect that right now and you can see what happens. Okay, that's because we haven't drawn our mask yet. Let's go ahead and select your mask. Again, you can always invert it if you want, but we don't want it inverted right now. Let's go ahead, again, make sure that's selected. Let's go ahead and scroll up here on her. Let's go back to the single viewer. And all we need to do now is trace around her, just as we did with the car there. And we can do this really quick. It doesn't have to be perfect for this example, okay? So I'm just going to go around her really quick. And that's probably far enough because I don't think the text is going to really be down this far anyway. So I'll just go ahead and come around here and come up the other side. Again, just clicking. We can always adjust these points later on if we need to. And connect the mask, close it out. Very good. And now you can see we can actually see through it, but we need to actually invert this mask. So just remember to invert it. And there we go. Now the text is behind her. So now we can go ahead and again, scroll in even closer here and then really do the detailed work to make sure that this is perfect. I'm not going to really take the time to do it, but you definitely should if you're using this on a real, on a real shot. Really take the time to get everything just perfect because there's no reason to put out bad work when you can just fix it in a couple of seconds or a couple of minutes. All right, that's going to be good enough for the purposes of a demo though. All right, there we go. So we can go ahead and come back to edit here. And there's our clip. As you can see, comes through. I'll go into full screen. I'll just step through it here. And now it's being revealed by the car, and it's behind her, and it's of course increasing in size. Of course, like I said, you're going to have to go back there and animate that mask, as you can see right here. So we have to come back to Fusion, make sure we select Polygon 2, go ahead and come in here and step through it. Come back here and go ahead and fix this mask here. Okay, so that's going to be the steps. Go forward a few frames, fix it here, so on and so forth. Okay, just go through and fix your mask and get it looking perfect. All right. Now, of course, we do have sort of the same problem we had previously, right? Where if we take a look at this, let's come back to edit here and we'll go to full screen. You know, that line of that mask is kind of stark, right? So we can go ahead and put a blur on that as well, just to make it look a little bit better. And now that looks a lot better as that comes on, it reveals on, and it's behind her. We have put a little bit of blur on the mask for the car and some blur around her mask as well. Now it looks a lot better. Of course, again, I'd really have to fix this mask frame by frame to make it perfect, but that's a really cool effect that doesn't take that long at all. So one more thing that we'll show real quick, come back here to Fusion. What if you wanted to use some 3D text instead of the text plus tool? We can do that as well. Let's grab our text 3D, throw it right there. Then we'll grab maybe a merge 3D. May not actually need one in this case, but we'll just put it in here anyway. And then we can do a camera. If you really want to get, crazy with this, you can do lighting. If you want to do a spotlight, you can just start connecting all of this stuff up here. And then at the end of your text 3D, you'll need what's called renderer 3D. So make sure that's connected there. Okay. So that's sort of what it would look like. Now you don't have to necessarily have the merge and all of this camera stuff if you don't want it. We'll do it a little bit more simple right now. Get rid of these nodes. I'm not going to use those in this case. Let's just keep it sort of simple. We'll go ahead and connect this here. And I'm going to disconnect this text here, disconnect this, and just move it off to the side. I can always put it back in there whenever I want. Pull this blur off for now. Then I'll just hit the second viewer right here. Grab our text node. We'll just say text. And then, of course, do whatever you want to with your extrusion, and you can rotate things around however you want. Move things around by character, by words, whatever you needed to do there. And we'll connect this to our merge now and make sure we're viewing the media out right there. Now we have the text behind her, the 3D text. We can, of course, animate that. Of course, we need to go ahead and connect our mask to our text 3D, which will be a little trickier than just directly connecting it here. Instead, we're going to connect it over here on the renderer 3D on this effect mask node here. If I just hover over that, the effect mask right here, just connect it as such. And now we have that mask there and it reveals. And then of course you can go ahead and animate your 3D text. And we're back to our text plus tool right here. So here's just basically the way that everything is connected. Just take a quick look at that. Now, if you decide you don't want the text behind her, very simple. We can just disconnect this whole chain. And then the text is back to being in front of her or whatever, you happen to be revealing there. So it's really quick to actually work this way in Fusion because you can really decide, how you want things done. You can try different things just by connecting them and then just disconnecting them really quick. But we kind of like it like that. All right. So that is a couple different ways to do a text reveal here in DaVinci Resolve, either using right here was our color page that we did it on. Really cool. Or even over here in Fusion and get as complicated as you want. So here is a few more examples of ways you can use a text reveal. All right, so that is our simple, relatively simple text reveal here in DaVinci Resolve. Again, using the color page or using Fusion.